So, have you ever heard of an election for a government that doesn't have a country? Well, that's exactly what we're looking at today, the Tibetan Sikyong election. It's this incredible democratic exercise that spans the entire globe.
I mean, think about that for a second. How do you even do that? How do you organize a global election for government in exile? You've got voters literally all over the world. India, the US, Switzerland, you name it. So yeah, the big question is, how on earth does this whole thing work?
Okay, so to get our heads around that, we've got to first understand what this election is actually for. It's all about choosing the leader for something called the Central Tibetan Administration, or CTA for short.
And the person at the very top of the CTA, that's the Sikyong. The easiest way to think about it is like a president or a prime minister. This is the person who's the political head of the government in exile. You know, the one steering the ship and representing the Tibetan cause internationally. Now, here's what makes this role so important and actually pretty new. For centuries, right, the Dalai Lama was both the spiritual and political leader. But then in 2011, something huge happened. The 14th Dalai Lama made this historic decision to hand over all his political authority to the elected Sikyong. I mean, what a moment. It basically solidified this democratic process as the way forward for Tibetan governance. All right, so we know what the role is, but how does someone actually become the Sikyong? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of how the election actually works, and we'll use the upcoming 2026 election as our example.
First off, this isn't a one-day affair. The whole thing is spread out over several months. It all kicks off with voter registration, which starts in late 2025. Then you've got the actual voting, which happens in 2 rounds in early 2026. And finally, we get the results in May. It's a whole process. And the voting itself is really interesting. It's a 2-round system. Think of it like a primary and then a final election. In the first round, the preliminary one, you could have a whole bunch of candidates. Anyone who's eligible can throw their hat in the ring. Voters pick their favorite, and then only the top 2 vote-getters move on. They go head-to-head in the final round. It's a pretty smart way to narrow the field and make sure the winner has broad support.
So who actually gets to vote? Well, the rules are pretty simple. You have to be at least 18, and you need to have paid your Green Book dues. Now, you might be asking, what's a Green Book? It's basically the official registration for Tibetans living outside of Tibet, and making that annual contribution is a really important part of being an active member of the community.
Okay, so we've got the voting down, but where things get really unique is the campaigning. There are some incredibly specific rules here, and they're all there for one big reason: to keep the Tibetan movement united. Just take a look at this. The campaign code of conduct has some major no-goes. You absolutely cannot use images of the Dalai Lama or the Tibetan flag in your campaign materials. Why? Because those symbols belong to all Tibetans, not just one candidate's campaign. On top of that, personal attacks are out. Trying to split voters based on religion or where they're from, totally banned. The whole point is to keep the focus on ideas and policy, not on tearing each other down.
And all of this whole philosophy is summed up perfectly in the official motto: I am Tibet, I vote for Tibet. And that's way more than just a catchy slogan, right? It's a reminder to everyone to vote for what's best for the entire Tibetan cause, not just for one person. It's all about that shared identity.
Okay, so with all those rules in place, what do the candidates actually talk about? What are the big issues that are going to dominate the debates? Let's jump into that. Number 1, without a doubt, is international diplomacy. This is a huge part of the Sikyong's job, being Tibet's main voice on the world stage. So voters are going to be looking really closely. Who has the chops to meet with world leaders? Who can get countries like Canada or the Czech Republic to stand up for Tibet? Who can make sure the world doesn't forget?
Then you have an issue that is just monumental: the Dalai Lama's succession. It's incredibly sensitive, but absolutely critical. The person who wins this election will be responsible for helping to navigate the future reincarnation process and making sure it's a genuine spiritual process, completely free from interference by the Chinese government. You can't overstate how much political and religious weight that carries.
And last but not least, there's the challenge of keeping everyone together. We're talking about a global community, right? You've got different generations, people with different priorities, living in totally different cultures. A great Sikyong has to be someone who can bridge those gaps, get younger people involved, and just manage the incredible logistics of a government for people scattered across the planet.
So you see what's at stake, and it really makes you wonder, how much does this all matter to the average Tibetan?
Well, the answer is pretty clear when you look at one simple thing. Who shows up to vote?
Get this. In the 2021 election, the voter turnout was around 77%. 77! I mean, that's a massive number for any election anywhere. It just shows you how deeply invested and engaged this community is in its own democratic process. And here's what that looks like in raw numbers. Out of about 83,000 registered voters worldwide, almost 64,000 of them made sure to cast their ballot. That's not just a statistic, that's a powerful statement from a community determined to make their voices heard. Now, of course, pulling this off isn't easy, not by a long shot. Think about trying to enforce that campaign code of conduct across dozens of countries and all over social media. It's a huge task. And then you've got the same problems every democracy faces, like fighting misinformation and trying to make sure everyone feels represented, whether they're in India or Minnesota. And that really brings us to the big final question, doesn't it? The Sikyong election, it's so much more than just a political contest. It really is a living, breathing experiment in how a nation without a country can practice democracy. It's about identity, it's about resilience, and the biggest test of all will be whether this incredible model can keep uniting a global community and inspire a new generation to pick up that torch